On this video, we're going to be talking about the movie Take Back the Night. What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you're new to our platform, we are a nonprofit and publication that creates content like the one you're watching right now to educate and engage individuals like yourself on mental health awareness and suicide prevention. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I have the privilege of being both a writer and podcaster here. And on this video, we're going to be talking about Take Back the Night. Take Back the Night tells the story of a social media influencer slash artist named Jane Doe, who after a party actually ends up becoming assaulted by what she believes is a monster and spends the rest of the film trying to find proof of her allegations. Let me start off by saying that this movie is the Babadook for sexual assault victims. Also know that is high praise to claim. And also just want to throw this out there that if you haven't heard our episode on the Babadook, the link is in the description below. And also that if you or someone you know is struggling or has gone through or experienced anything like rape, sexual assault, or sexual violence, there are resources as well in the descriptions below. So Elliott is the writer, co-writer, and director on this movie. Not only is the script for this movie incredibly intelligent and paced really well, but I'm also going to say that the camera angles that this film explores really intensify the situations the characters are going through. Take, for example, how this movie opens up. I'm not going to spoil it, but basically, this movie just has a really intense opening prologue that just immediately grabs you and grips you and does not let go until the credits roll on this movie. Part of the reason what makes this film so effective is not only its use of its more science fiction-esque elements with the monster, but also the fact that it's dealing with true terror in things like rape and sexual assault. Even more effective than the use of science fiction is the camera angles and the camera work that Elliott really brings to this project. She does a really good job at kind of making this film feel almost like a documentary in some portions, given the fact that our main protagonist, Jane, is a social media influencer. There's a lot of influence on that end as well, and the character journey and kind of the mix of the social media really kind of make for an interesting and memorable experience that walks the line between horror and almost documentary feel. This film feels incredibly grounded, even despite its themes. It feels very much grounded despite its more fantastical elements. And I say that because this film would not be as effective if it wasn't for that. Behind me, you guys can see a promising young woman poster. Side note, I also really recommend this movie if you guys haven't checked it out. But one of the reasons that movie is so effective is because it shows the legitimate mental health effects that go through after someone faces sexual assault, and this film does that incredibly well as well. I've mentioned earlier that this film feels a lot like the Babadook. Imagine the Babadook and Promising Young Woman had a baby. This is Take Back the Night is what this movie is, what the product of that relationship would be. However, unlike Promising Young Woman and the Babadook, this film has what I would call valleys and mountain moments. There are definite moments where I am just drawn in and just really allured by the performances given in this movie. And in the same breath, I also find myself kind of disconnected and disassociated from these characters just because the performances feel at times like they feel almost on par with like a B movie. But these offenses are really easy to overlook just because of how well this film does atmospheric horror, its fantastical elements, and it grounds itself in real life statistics and mental health aftercare. For this film's mental health moment following the assault of character Jane, who, as I've mentioned, is a social media influencer, actually takes to her Instagram YouTube page to actually address the events of the event that has taken place for her. She puts it out there and just is vulnerable with her audience. And honestly, whether you're talking about something like mental health, like depression, or even having an urge to commit suicide, or even also acknowledging the fact that you have gone through a sexual assault or have been raped, a part of that healing process is being brave enough to be vulnerable. And that's actually what I want to encourage viewers and watchers, not only to put this film on your radar, but also at the same time to encourage you that if you're going through that, or you know someone that's going through that, be brave enough to be vulnerable. It's while vulnerability feels really terrifying at first, it's part of the healing process that ultimately ends up helping other people. I've often shared this at conventions and on the podcast, but the reason why I got it started doing victims and villains was because I went through depression. I had those suicidal tendencies and urges. I've been anxious. I still go through depression, and I've also lost someone to suicide. And a good portion of why I've made this content over the last few years has been to encourage others and kind of to talk about people, to talk about the experiences that I've gone through in hopes that it'll help someone else. And sometimes that vulnerability really does help other people say, okay, well, if this person's brave enough, then I can be brave enough too. And that's a portion of what we see Jane go through. That's a portion of her healing process. And so I want to encourage you guys to be vulnerable. You guys can message us on any of our social medias, or just check out our mental health resource library below. But whatever you do, make sure that you guys are daring to be vulnerable and daring to find community in the right people. Take Back the Night on our Rorschach rating scale, I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 5. This film does extremely atmospheric really well, and it balances its themes extraordinarily well, but at the same time it also has some issues with its performances, and just some issues from a technical standpoint as well that I really feel like could have been worked on a little bit better. And it's specifically with the monster is left to be very ambiguous. Whereas when you look at something like the Babadook's obviously an allegory for grief. For me as a viewer, I kind of felt like what the monster was supposed to be representing kind of flip-flop from time to time. But if you guys have seen Take Back the Night, make sure that you guys comment below and let me know what you guys thought about it. I highly recommend this movie. It is a just fantastic film from start to finish. And you guys can also check out our interview with Elliott as well. And until next time, make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button, and be sure to be on the lookout for more films like Take Back the Night from GenreBlast 2019.